Good morning. My name is Eric Delgado, and I'm coming to you live from sunny South Florida. This is probably my 12th attempt to make this video. I'm not very tech savvy, and I definitely don't ever make selfie videos, so this is something outside of my comfort zone, which is what we were asked to do in our homework assignment. And this is for the homework assignment in May, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of our story of the woman with the issue of blood, kind of how I would do it in my class. I use this story and I use it a lot in my class because I absolutely love it. It's a great illustration of faith and our faith and how it can get us through our challenges, situations, anything that we're going through. It can heal us, and how much our words have power, and our thoughts, what we think in our heart and believe with our heart, have power. So, the story of the woman with the issue of blood, and I always try to relate it to the kids as I try to set it up as Jesus was the rock star of his era. When he went places and people found out, who he was, that he was the Messiah, and heard of the things that he has done, they always want to come see him. So large crowds would gather. So I kind of set the story up by showing illustrations of movie stars or athletes with paparazzi or fans around, and how they kind of crowd around them, and a lot of times that there's security that has to keep them away to allow them to get from point A to point B. So I think it's important. We have an object lesson that I'll tell to you a little bit later on how we kind of set the whole thing up and get them to have a good picture of what the situation looked like. Um, excuse me. So the story is that there was a woman with the issue of blood, and she was a sickness. She was bleeding, and it had been several years that she's had this issue. And she spent all her wealth, all her money, everything she owned to try to go to different doctors and try to be healed, but nobody was able to heal her. And essentially now she was poor. People who had disease or sickness at this time were essentially outcasts. So she wasn't welcome into the area that she was at like she had been previously, and she was ill. So she heard of the story of this Messiah who was coming to the area where she was at, and Jesus arrived by boat. And again, so when people started finding out who he was and that he was there, a crowd started to gather. There was a ruler of one of the synagogues, and his daughter was dying. And when he heard that Jesus had arrived, he went down to the river where Jesus was and met him when he was getting off the boat, and asked him if he would be willing to go to his home to heal his daughter, who was basically on death's door. And Jesus agreed, and he started his journey to the house to heal the little girl. And as he was on his journey, I mean, you got to kind of imagine it. I mean, everybody was like, "Oh, this is the Messiah. This is Jesus. This is the guy everybody's been talking about. Let's go see him." So people started gathering around. They wanted to touch him and see him. So a crowd started gathering. And his disciples kind of worked as a security guard, trying to keep people away and allowing Jesus to get to the home to heal the girl. So as this is going on, there's a crowd gathering. The disciples are kind of around him, trying to ward off people, to try to allow him to go from point A to point B. And there was this woman in the midst, and again, she was an outcast. She probably shouldn't even have been that close to anybody because she was sick for so long, and they didn't understand why. And people in that time thought maybe that you could catch something, from that. So she was an outcast. She shouldn't even have been in the area, but she knew. She told herself in her heart, she says, "I believe that this man is the Messiah." She believed that he had healing power because she had heard about it, and that she knew all she had to do was touch the hem of his garment, and that she would be healed from her affliction. She knew it. She had faith. And her faith is what eventually healed her. So as this crowd's gathering around Jesus, he's trying to get to the home to heal the little girl. The crowd gathers. He's walking. There's people all around. The disciples are trying to push people away, and they're bumping into each other. And I'm sure the disciples are hitting Jesus. People are trying to touch Jesus. And this woman, she goes into the crowd, and she reaches out and grabs the hem of his garment. And she said, it says in the word, it says right when she touched the hem of his garment, she knew she was healed. And Jesus, at that point, felt power leave his body. So he stopped And you got to imagine this huge crowd, everybody's gathered around, the disciples are doing their thing, trying to keep everybody off of Jesus, and they're bumping into him, and all of a sudden Jesus stops and says, "Who touched me?" And it's like, "Who touched me?" The disciples are like, "What do you mean, who touched you? Everybody's gathered around, we're bumping into you, everybody's touching you." And Jesus is like, "No, who touched me?" And he meant it as touched him with faith, with belief. And Jesus said he felt power leave his body. Now that woman was afraid. She wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So she was afraid of what was going to happen. But she said, she knows, "It was me. Messiah, it was me." And Jesus said, "You are healed. Your faith has healed you," is what Jesus says. He says her faith healed him. And what I love about this illustration is it's not somebody coming to Jesus like the ruler of the synagogue did. Not saying that Jesus wouldn't do it, because he was going to heal his daughter, but coming to Jesus and say, "Oh, and Messiah, heal me, please. I know you have the healing power. I've seen you raise, or I've heard stories about you raising the dead, making the blind, allowing the blind to see. So if it's your will, heal me." No, she didn't say that. She knew who he was. She had faith that Jesus would heal her, that it was in his best interest to heal her. That not his best interest, but that's what he was here for. That's what he wanted to do. She had heard the stories and she believed them and known them to be true. And it says that all she had to do was touch a hem of his garment and she was going to be healed. And it was her faith, and she knew in her heart that that's all she had to do. She didn't have to ask for it. She knew it was available. She knew that Jesus wanted to heal her because he was healing all these people. He had said it in his word. And she knew that with all of her heart. So when she touched the hem of his garment, he was healed. She was healed from her issue. And this is a great illustration, I think, again, for the fact that she didn't ask permission. She knew it. It was her faith that got her through that. Now, we do an object lesson in my class where we call it Jesus is the Rock Star. And we actually bring in a robe and we select some students to be Jesus, one at a time. And then some are going to be disciples, and then some are going to be the crowd. And what we allow them to do is we allow them to go out. I'll give one of the crowd members a red scarf to put in their pocket. And that is the woman with the issue of blood. Now, the disciples, Jesus' object is Jesus has to get from point A to point B in the classroom. With the crowd around him, we give them cameras and pretend to take pictures and pretend to take selfies and to touch on him and to try to get his autograph. And as he's going from point A to point B with that crowd around him, we have a couple of disciples there trying to guide him, get him through, but everybody's supposed to pull and tug on him. Now, the person in the crowd who selected that the disciples or Jesus don't know, with the red cloth in their pocket, touches him as well. So when Jesus gets from point A to point B, the point of the game is to ask Jesus to try to figure out who was the crowd member that touched him. I've been doing this for a while. Nobody's ever got it. But if they do, we'll have to get them to admit that it was just a lucky guess, because they won't know with everybody touching him. So the whole point to that is that Jesus knew when the woman with the issue of blood touched his body, because he felt the power leave his body, and he knew that somebody touched him that had that faith and that was looking for healing. And so it's a good little object lesson, I believe, to incorporate into this story. But again, we tell this story, we tell it a lot because it's our faith in this day and age, and the belief in that what the word says that we have available to us through the resurrection of Christ, and as being a Christian, that power and that energy and that salvation and that grace and the Holy Spirit, that's with us, and that's going to get us through our trials and tribulations and our situations and our challenges and our sickness. Just the belief and the fact that we know with our heart that Jesus is with us, and he doesn't want us to be sick. He doesn't want us to be lame. He wants us to have life, and have life to the full. So that's, again, a great illustration on faith. Coming up on 10 minutes, so I'm figuring that's probably about all you guys want. Hope you enjoyed it, and again, I'm loving the program. Kidman rocks. Yay!